Welcome to In the Middle. I'm Vicky. I'm a wife, a mom, and a leader shaping some of the world's most beloved brands. This is the podcast for all of us figuring it out in real time. In 20 minutes or less, let's get in the middle of it all. I'm so glad you're here. Hey, y'all, welcome back to In the Middle. I am so glad you're here. I am so excited. Today is my first installment of a series that I'm starting, and it is called Questions That Need Answers. So I'm getting DMs here and there, having conversations in real life, and people are asking questions about like follow-up questions after an episode drops or just general questions like my perspective on things. And so I thought there was opportunity for me to bring some of those questions onto the pod and also just kind of share some of the things I'm thinking about right now. So let me know what y'all think. If you have questions or you have ideas of things you want me to cover off on, I'm always happy to crowdsource. And as much as this podcast is mine, I also believe it's very much curated by my community and the conversations I'm having in real life. So if you want me to answer a question or talk about a topic, please send me a DM to the In the Middle pod account, or you can send an email to inthemiddle@lifewithvicky.com, and I'd be happy to incorporate some of your questions here. I, by design, did not take a ton of time looking through all of the questions. I collected like about 8 to 10, and I have a few like sort of current events that I want to also touch on that was raised up to me to consider. So yeah, so we'll see how it goes. It's the very first time I'm doing this, and I'm really interested to see the response. And again, if you have questions, I'm all ears. I'm also wearing glasses today. I have like a ruptured blood vessel in my eye. It looks super like crazy, but it is fine. I'm fine. I'm going to the eye doctor, and I have a feeling it's stress related, which is like a whole other topic of like, I feel like sort of your body tells you when your mind doesn't want to accept where you are. And so I think that I am probably in the middle of more stress than maybe I have let on to accept. So we're going to tuck that away for therapy. But let's get into it. I have my questions here, and it's kind of like not rapid fire, but I did not do a ton of prepping because I wanted um, sort of my initial thoughts to come through. So the first question on the list is, how do you stay faithful when prayers feel unanswered? Sometimes I think you actually go through a small season where you don't. Um, where you are struggling in your faithfulness. And I think that that's only human. So if that's something that you are navigating right now, I hope that you can just give yourself grace for the space that you're in, um, and just acknowledge your capacity. You may truly just be struggling. And I would say in those instances, your community plays a big part, making sure that you are connected to a really healthy and positive community. The other part is that you have to say the thing out loud. You need to tell someone that, like, hey, I'm really struggling to continue to believe that this thing is going to come to pass for me. I just don't see it. And I hope that whether it is something external that you get from your friends, the people that love you, or something internal that you can start to develop, I often look back on the miracles that I've seen God do in my life, whether it has been um, saving my daughter's life, and I will eventually talk about that. I've talked about it before years ago about Jordan and her delivery story and how the Lord really, really, I mean, saved her life. And candidly, that when I really am like down bad, I look at her and I'm like, Lord, you're faithful. You're faithful. And I know that gives me the reminder that I need, that the thing that I'm praying for, the thing that I believe He's promised to me is going to come to pass. But it's just a matter of me being patient enough to not be so married to my timeline. And that's another thing to consider, friend. Are you married to a specific timeline? And I, obviously don't know the full situation, but I will say sometimes we get in our own ways that we can hear this promise that's been given to us, very similar to like David. Like he had the promise, but it took a long time before he was actually put up into being the king. And so God can give us a promise and it may not come to pass for 10 years. And I think that in our very natural state, sometimes that's really hard to accept. And so I would encourage you to check the timeline Is it God driven or is it you driven? If it's you driven, try to pull that off as much as you can. And I'm not sitting here saying, like, oh, it's easy enough, just take it off. I get it. I get when you have a promise and you feel like, oh, this thing should be happening and it's not, how challenging that is. But the more you can remove these extra conditions that really keep us held in bondage, and it sets these expectations that the Lord never gave us. He never said, oh, in 3 months' time, you're going to meet the man of your dreams, and 6 months after that, he's going to propose. Maybe the promise was, you'll be married in a year. Like, who knows, right? So I think the more you can remove the time constraints, the freedom you'll get. I'm a firm believer that sometimes you have to say the thing even though you can't see it. So even if you don't, if whatever the milestone is or the goal that you're working towards, even if you can't see it, talk about it like it's happening. And it doesn't mean that the thing is going to change tomorrow, but there is going to be this shift in your heart that you will feel. And I believe that wholeheartedly. I am such a big proponent of affirmations and speaking kindly to yourself. And a few episodes ago, I talked about the power of affirmations, and I have some affirmations that I need to put them in my bio somehow. But just getting positive words and speaking positively over the thing that you want to see come to pass will really help you in this season where you feel like your prayers aren't being answered. And the last piece that I'll say on this question, this is supposed to be rapid fire, y'all, but I just get fired up when I hear things like this, because I just pray that we don't abandon a promise because it didn't come in the time that we wanted it. And so I would just encourage you that as you are doing all of the work, you also take stock of where you are and be honest with yourself. Are you really at a place that you're ready for that miracle to happen? Or are there areas in your life that you really could still refine that you haven't actually put that work in? Because there is a part of obedience that we sometimes will overlook because we believe that, oh, let me just get to the thing and I'll work on that skill. But it's actually God's protection that will keep you from that thing because he knows you're not ready. Be encouraged that if he made the promise, it will come to pass. But you need to maybe consider a few of the things that I just shared. Okay, next question. What does it mean to be a present mother and an ambitious woman? Ooh, man, that is that's such a good question. It's hard. It's hard. I think it is a constant game of trade-offs. I have long said that I believe women in particular, we can have it all, just not at the same time. And so if you are in a season where your children need you more, which I think is largely 0 to like 7, 8, 10, I don't know. We'll see. We're 6. Jordan's going to be 7 in a few short weeks. So there's still a lot of need for mama to be around. But in this season where you have very young children, I think there are trade-offs that you have to make. And it doesn't mean that you completely lose yourself during those trade-offs, but you are intentional. And I hope that it actually gives you power back to feel like you're still in the driver's seat to say, okay, I'm going to relax a little bit in my career because I want to be very present in this season of my child's life. And in 3 years, I'm going to fully lean in. I'm going to go for the promotion. I'm going to go for the new role. You are intentional. And so it doesn't feel like you are being tossed to and fro and that you have no control. You've made the proactive decision to say, this is a season where I really want to be a present mom. And I'll just share anecdotally, when Jordan, early days, she was in the NICU, and I said I was going to do this in another episode, but I'm giving you the sort of the quick and dirty. But Jordan's in the NICU for 3 weeks. Jordan had to have a G tube. A G tube is a tube that is placed in your belly so that food can be passed through a tube so that you can thrive. It was very scary for a while because the daycare we were already on the list for, they were like, if she needs this thing, we can't do this thing. We went, and her teacher in her infant room, she actually had a grandmother who needed a G tube. And so we brought Jordan in, and so she could see the G tube and see if she could navigate it. And she was like, "Oh, this boop 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 boop," and she did it just like that. And I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like I could just see the Lord in that. Like He worked that thing out for us, and it gave me the relief that I needed, that I would be able to go back to work, because ultimately I was at a place where I was making a decision that like I'm going to have to work with my company and my leaders at the time to be like, I need to be able to stay home. I'd probably hire a nanny or something, figure it out, but I just need to be able to be more present for my kids. So I was ready to make that decision and that sacrifice because she needed me the most then. And the same way across that next year, I needed to be in a role where I had flexibility, where I knew the job, where I had built a lot of equity and credibility with my leaders, that I could take her to appointments. Some of her appointments were 45 minutes to an hour away because she saw a lot of specialists. And so we needed that time and that capacity. So I say all of that to say, I was not thinking about a promotion. I wasn't thinking about anything in my career in that season because I just wanted my child to be well, and I wanted to be able to be present enough to be there so that she would not lack because mommy was chasing something. And so fast forward, not even a full year later, when we started to see like she was going to be okay and we were working through everything, and some of her care needs were falling off. She was off of the G tube actually once she hit about 4 months old, and it's so crazy. As soon as she started at the preschool, she didn't need it another day, which is just it. God is faithful. He is so faithful. Every time I think about her story, I just get weepy. Anyway, and so after that, a former colleague reached out to me about an opportunity at a smaller tech company, and they needed someone to stand up and sustain their social program. And long story short, I made the leap over. So I hope that's a really tangible example of balancing your ambition and motherhood. So it's a balance. And I think you have to accept that you're not going to be at every single thing. You're not going to make every event. I'm not going to chapel every week. She asks, and sometimes I'm saying, yeah, I can come. I'll come to this one if I don't have any meetings on my calendar. But oftentimes I don't make it because mommy needs to work. And I also think eventually she'll appreciate the fact that mommy was working, both in me being disciplined and being a provider, but also still making time for her. So I hope that helps. Hey, y'all, I don't know if I'm going to get through all these questions. I have been trying to be a lot more disciplined about doing the 20 minutes or less. I hope y'all notice I'm trying. Anyway, okay, so what is the hardest thing about reinventing yourself? I would say the hardest thing is truly believing you deserve it and accepting the reinvention. Oftentimes we can be the hardest critic and the hardest person to convince that you are not the same person you used to be. And we hold ourselves hostage to the things that we used to do. And so I would just encourage you to start within yourself. You are allowed to make different decisions about who you are and how you show up in the world. And so if you used to smoke and you say, you know what, I don't want to smoke anymore. It's not good for me. I don't like how it makes me feel. I don't like what it's doing to my body. You make that active decision that I am no longer a smoker. And not only do you go away from the habits that would encourage you, whether that's drinking, whether that's socializing at a particular bar or whatever it is, like hanging around certain people, if they trigger smoking, have an honest conversation with, say, hey, I want to do something different. I don't want to smoke anymore. I am not a smoker anymore. And I think that's also just a little bit of the tweak that you have to make is I am no longer a smoker. You say the thing before it actually is. Then you're not buying cigarettes anymore. You're not vaping anymore. You've made the decision that I am not doing this thing. And then you confidently tell people in your orbit for accountability that you are no longer a smoker. And if they see you smoking, to remind you that, hey, you told me you're no longer a smoker, right? And so you have to believe that you deserve a different life, a better life for yourself. And you can't let your past keep you hostage. I believe that's the trick of the enemy. The enemy doesn't want to see you grow and become your very best self. He wants to hold you hostage. He wants you to feel bad about yourself and bad about your life. Another area where I think it's very hard to reinvent yourself is drowning out the people around you. So even if you can get over the internal naysayer, then you have the people who are most familiar with you who sometimes they may just kind of joke with you like, oh, here you go. Yeah, you said you don't shop anymore, but I know you're about to hit up the stores. And those things, they're kind of like paper cuts. They hurt a little bit and they start to plant a little self-doubt. And if you find that you have people in your life who are constantly reminding you of who you are, depending on who they are, you may need to have an honest conversation with them to say like, hey, it's actually really hurtful for you to continue to remind me of who I am. I'm actively working on becoming a new person. And if you're going to stay in my life, I need you to support that. You just need to say it just that plainly so that they understand the seriousness of the journey that you're on and the role that you're expecting them to play. And if they can't honor that, if they can't respect that, then I wonder whether or not they should even be in your life and even have that level of access to you. The other thing, and we even see this in the Bible, when you are so familiar with people, it's hard for them to see you any differently than how they met you in the season of your life that they were actively in. And I don't think it's your responsibility to convince them of who you are. Over time, they will see, and over time, they will need to accept. And the other piece that is at play that you have no control over is what your changes means to them. And if they are navigating their own journey of not being able to evolve and grow, and them seeing you grow makes them feel bad. It is not your job to manage other people's emotions, but oftentimes people will try to hold you to who you were because they haven't accelerated their life and grown their life. So don't let them distract you or keep you held hostage to who you were because they aren't doing the hard work to evolve themselves. The last thing I'll say on this topic is our natural inclination to go into autopilot. It is who we are, human nature. Our brain wants to shut down as quickly as possible. And so the autopilot of it all, if you say, hey, I want to be a morning person, I want to work out at 6 a.m., you'll do it for the first few weeks. If you don't have an intentional plan, if you don't set yourself up for success in the morning, as soon as one thing throws a monkey wrench in your plan, you go back to how you typically showed up. That is not an indictment, but it's something that you have to acknowledge, is that you have to push through the autopilot feeling. And we all feel it, whether we're tired or we're hungry or we're stressed, whatever it is, we want to go back to what feels normal and comfortable so you don't have to think about it. That is going to be the thing that derails your reinvention each and every time. So until you can get to a place where you can develop it as a true habit, you have to know that my brain has to be present and I have to be active in mind until I can get to the other side of this reinvention. And now I just am. I hope that is helpful. And I am believing for and with you on this reinvention. I continue to go through my own reinventions as I'm getting through sort of like reinventing who I am as a content creator, because early in my life, I had a blog and I created content. And then I sort of, as someone who professionally works in social and digital, it kind of got exhausting and I lost a lot of joy out of content creation because I was also doing it professionally. And so now that I am not in a role where I technically create, there are folks on my team and that I work with across my team and my larger organization. I'm having a ton of fun being able to create content again. So yeah, it is sort of a reinvention for myself. So good luck, and I'm believing the best for you. How do you take responsibility for your role when friendships don't work out? Woo! First of all, can I just say, like, the fact that you're even asking that question tells me that you are so self-aware that you're going to be just fine. So thank you. And I hope that like that it blows me away that you can even acknowledge that like, what was my role in this? Because oftentimes, unfortunately, people will turn a blind eye and they are perfect and it was the other person completely egregious. That person did everything wrong and there isn't an acknowledgement of where they fell short. I hope that you feel really proud for yourself. If you are looking for opportunities to understand where you fell short, if the door is still open with the friend who the relationship is ended with, ask them. Say like, hey, and I don't know if you've had the conversation or not. If the door is open, ask them. And it's not in the place of that you're wanting to reconcile unless you are. And I think you can weave that into the conversation. But to say, hey, I don't know, I'm not clear on where I fell short as a friend. Would you be willing to share that feedback? And you have to take in everything that they shared. Now, It doesn't mean that you have to accept all of it as the gospel. I always like to say, eat the meat, spit out the bones. So if they say, hey, you didn't show up consistently, you weren't a great listener, you always overtalked me, and whatever the things are, take it as information and say, okay, I appreciate you sharing that with me. If they ask you for feedback, offer the feedback, but don't retort because your feelings are hurt because they told you their lived experience with you. And then I would go to some additional friends or family members to say, hey, where do you think I fall short in being in friendship or relationship with you? And see what they say. And see if you see any patterns. If you consistently hear you overtalk me, then there is probably a strong chance that you can't help yourself and you just have to jump in. And that is a skill that you can work on developing to say, okay, I'm going to actively listen. I'm not going to listen to respond. I'm going to actively listen to what this person is saying to me. And I'm going to respond when it's my time. I mean, we're human, y'all. Like, give yourself grace, give them grace. And if you need to, apologize. If they've shared things for you, first of all, thank them for being willing. And again, I don't know if the relationship is fully severed or if you're kind of just going through a rough patch. Either way, say thank you for them being vulnerable and willing to offer you the feedback, and say sorry if you need to say sorry. Okay. So these are some of the hot topics that I've been asked to comment on. There's two today. The first one is, what's your opinion on the Drewski skit? Okay, so gosh, if and for those of you who may not follow Drewski, and I don't really follow him, he shows up on my feed occasionally, and I've seen some stuff on YouTube. But Drewski is a comedian. I don't even, y'all keep me honest in the comments. He seems like a comedian, entertainer. I think he has a couple of shows, and so that, just to give you context of who he is, to me he is an entertainer and a comedian. If somebody were to come out and say, oh, actually, he's a theologian, I would be floored. But I think I have the right assessment of him. Anyway, recently he was poking fun at a very stereotypical representation of mega churches and mega church pastors. The internet is divided. She is up in arms. It didn't make me upset as a believer, and actually as someone who essentially has spent the majority of my Christian life in larger churches or some mega churches. I wasn't offended because I don't think he was making fun of the church. I think he was making fun of these personas that we all see. And one of my favorite sayings, being a Southerner, is like, a hit dog will holler. If it really, really bothered you, I feel like there is something there that you need to unpack, and it's not because of Drewski. The one piece that I do feel like about is, from what I'm reading on the internet, is that he actually filmed it in a church, and that does bother me because I believe that the church is a holy and sacred place. If he filmed this at a local arena or some type of theater, it would be fine to me. But that's my only sort of gripe. I think that we continue to have an issue in especially evangelical Christianity. There is such a fine line between judging the way people show up behind the pulpit and what's appropriate and what's inappropriate. My mind is always set on the men and women of God who get behind the pulpit and teach the gospel. They are accountable to the Lord. It is not my place to judge. They are going to have to answer for how they've shown up, how they've used the resources that come through their ministry. They are accountable to that. And if my spirit is disturbed by that, then I no longer belong to their church. And I am grateful and thankful that I've been connected to ministries where I see the work that my church is doing, that my pastors are doing. The other thing that we have to take away from this is that we should not be so connected to a person that we feel like we need them to get to God. We should all have direct relationships with the Lord. We should all be studying the word for ourselves so that we aren't reliant on a person or a specific ministry. I think there is a ton of power in being connected to a church and serving your community, because that's the other part of it, is like we should not just be sitting there on Sundays and if you do Bible study on Wednesdays and just taking and taking, especially as you grow in your faith. There, you should be getting to a place where you're pouring back out, whether it's into your community, whether it's men or women that you are mentoring in the church. It is a very cyclical experience that you should have as a Christian. And so I think there's so much more for us to discuss as believers than Drewski poking fun at some pastors who maybe are doing a bit too much. So that's my 2 cents. Last topic. And this is one that really makes me sad. Christy Scott and Desmond Scott recently announced that they were getting a divorce. And if you don't follow them, they are this couple that created content, lots of prank content. The husband, Desmond, cooks really well. And they recently shared that they were filing for divorce, and they cited infidelity on Desmond's part as the reason they were getting divorced. Whenever I see a marriage falling apart, whether it is someone that I know in real life or something that I see on social media, my heart weeps and my heart breaks, because we've made this commitment to do life together, build a life together. When there are children involved is even sadder. And so I feel like social media has created this environment where we zoom past the humanity of all of that and we jump straight into the indictment of people. And we forget that there are humans on the other side of the vitriol that is being typed in the comment section. And I blame this like idea about parasocial relationships, because creators are putting out content. We think we know them better than we actually do. Like, you feel like, oh, I know this person because they talk about these specific things, or they're publishing so much content, you're in their day to day. We've got to be reminded that these people have the opportunity to record, edit, tweak, Photoshop. Like, there, it is just so curated. The other piece is when we're in these parasocial relationships, as consumers, there almost becomes this sort of entitled spirit that you deserve to know every nitty gritty detail about their relationship and why it's fallen apart. They owe us nothing. They owe us nothing. Now, if they had come onto the internet and presented their content as relationship advice, healthy marriage advice, all of those things, there could be something to be said about, okay, the relationship didn't work. What happened? You want that transparency. But they were here to give us laughs and giggles. And yes, and they did a ton of that. And I love their content, and I will continue to follow them and follow their content. And I'm praying God's best for both of them. It saddens me to see so many people just having all of these strong opinions. You don't know. You literally don't know. And I am not defending Desmond by any means, but I think that we need to be reminded that we don't know these people. But if you are not getting all the details you feel you deserve, I think that's something that you need to deal with within yourself, is why do you feel like they should be sharing more than what they are? It's a shame that we have someone's whole job likely to find out when someone is filing for divorce or any other changes in their life, so that then it can be made public for consumption so these media outlets can make money off of it. It's actually really, really sad. And this is one of my biggest struggles about people being famous and being public figures. Even if you have come into the world to do one specific thing, whether you're a singer or a dancer or a performer of sorts, we as consumers now feel we deserve every aspect of your life. That is something that I truly admire about Beyonce. Beyonce is going to give us what she wants to give us. Nothing more, nothing less. And I appreciate so much about that, because really we're here for the music. Like, it is a blessing to see the family. Thank you, Beyonce. But truly, I'm here for the music, and I will take all of the good tunes that you have coming our way. I'm waiting for Act 3. I'm waiting for Act 3, Beyonce. So yeah, I definitely went over time. Sorry, y'all. That is it today for questions that need answers. What do you think? Are there topics you want me to cover off on? I'm assuming that this will be something I do on a monthly basis unless there's more that's happening in the zeitgeist that I feel strongly about commenting on. But yeah, I'm always willing to take your questions and use your questions here to be a part of this type of episode, or if it's something that warrants a full episode, I would love to do that as well. So feel free to send me a note at inthemiddle@lifewithvicky.com, or just send a DM on TikTok or Instagram. The handle is _middle_pod, both on Instagram and TikTok. All right, friends, it was great to spend some time with you and do this new series. All right, see you next week. Bye. Thanks for listening to In the Middle. If this episode resonated with you, share it with a friend and click subscribe so you never miss an honest conversation about life in the middle. I'll see you next time.